Alright guys, I'm back again with another deck profile from Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on the Nintendo Switch. This time we're doing version 1 of our Dragon Empire Mahar Nirvana overdress deck, which as always version 1 is everything up to the first additional card pass, so through D Booster Set 7. Although, like was with the case with the previous Grade 3 variant of Nirvana that we did, this deck does only use cards from the base game, so you can play this deck without actually paying for any of the DLC. Which, speaking of which, this is our second different variation of the Nirvana deck. I already have a video up on the Grade 3 variant that focuses solely on the Grade 3 Nirvana, as well as Vairina Urger. And this build is more of a standard Nirvana deck, focused on the Grade 4 Mahar Nirvana, as well as the Grade 4 form for Vairina. So as always, we'll be going through the deck real fast, and then we'll show it off in one card fight so you can see it in action. So starting first, as always, with our Ride deck, which is the same Ride deck as the Grade 3 variant of the deck. We have our Grade 0 starter, which is Sunrise Egg. So when it's rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Standard D-Series starter. Next up, for our Grade 1, we have Blaze Maiden Reno. So her auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Blaze Maiden Ryu, search your deck for up to one Trick Star, call it a Rearguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. And then she's got a continuous ability when she's on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle that says during the battle this unit attack, this unit gets power plus 2000. So this card lets you search out one copy of Trick Star, guaranteeing that you get at least the one copy of that very vital combo piece in this deck, since we need Trick Star to be the base for all of our overdress units. So being able to be guaranteed to get one is very helpful. Next up, for our Grade 2, we have Blaze Maiden Ryu. So her auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, you Soul Blast 1, search your deck for up to one Vairina, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. And then she's got the same continuous ability that Reno has, where she gains 2000 when she attacks. So, for the cost of one soul, you can search out Vairina from your deck, which we are only running the one copy of, since it is kind of the least useful Vairina form in the deck. So, if you draw into it, or damage check it, or whatever, before you use this card's ability, then you get to save a Soul Blast, I guess. So, then lastly, for our Grade 3, we have Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana. So his activate ability, once per turn, you can discard a card from your hand, choose a Grade 0 card from your drop, and call it a Rearguard Circle. So that ability is mainly there just to revive your Trick Stars from your drop zone. And then additionally, he has an auto ability that says when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1, and this unit and all of your units with the overdress ability get power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So that ability should be powering up your entire front row in most cases, since most of the time your front row rear guards are going to be your overdress units. So it's just a basic power gain ability, which most of the time you're only going to be sitting on Grade 3 Nirvana for one turn at the most, because the first card in our main deck, which is our Grade 4, we're running 4 copies of Chakrabarthi True Dragon Mahar Nirvana. So this is Nirvana's Grade 4 form. He has a continuous ability that says during your turn, if you have a unit in the overdress state, all of your front row units get power plus 10,000. So that's another power up ability very similar to Grade 3 Nirvana's second ability, although this one is a little bit better since it doesn't have any cost, being a continuous ability, and it can power up your entire front row regardless of if they have overdress or not, by just having one unit in the overdress state. Then additionally, he has an activate ability that says once per turn, you can counterblast 1 and put a card with Nirvana and its card name from your hand or soul into the drop. To choose a Grade 0 from your drop, call it to Rearguard Circle, and choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and if your opponent's damage zone has 4 or less cards, you can deal 1 damage. So he actually has a burn skill, which burn skills are actually pretty rare in Vanguard. So very powerful ability, being able to directly damage your opponent. Of course, it only works if they're at 4 or less, so you can't end a game with it, though you can potentially push them to 5 and force them to guard everything that turn. So that's a very powerful ability, in addition to also letting you revive a grade 0 from your drop, which most of the time is going to be your trick stars to set up your overdress units. So next up, we also have a grade 4 rear guard in this deck. We're running 4 copies of Vairina Esperidia. So this is the grade 4 form of Vairina, our main overdress unit of the deck. And of course you do overdress him on top of Trickstar. So his auto ability, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if it is overdress, put all Trickstar and cards with the overdress ability from your drop as this unit's original dress. So he vacuums up all your Vairinas and Trickstars out of your drop in order to become original dress for him when you overdress into him. Which is significant for his second auto ability that says once per turn when your Vanguard attacks, you can Soul Blast 1, stay in this unit, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn for each of this unit's original dress. So the more original dress that he can suck up with his first ability, the more powerful he becomes when he restands off of his second ability. So this is a very vital card for your offense in this deck. It gives you your 4th attack, potentially a 5th if you can get 2 of them set up in your front row, while also becoming very powerful on his second attack, assuming that he has a lot of original dress built up. Which, one thing to note, he can restand even if he's not in the overdress state. So if you have like one set up already and then you have another copy of him in your hand but you don't have a Trickstar to overdress him on, you can just normal call him and he still will be able to restand himself. He just won't gain any extra power. So that's all of our grade 4s. Moving on to our grade 3s. First off, we have 3 copies of Vairina Expecta. So it's another overdress unit. You overdress it on top of a unit in the overdress state. So this is the one Vairina in the deck that you cannot just directly overdress right on to Trickstar. But he's got a continuous ability that says this unit gets the original power of all of its original dress. So that can power him up to pretty big numbers easily on his own. And then he also has an auto ability that says when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if this unit is in the overdress state, you can counterblast 1, and this unit gets power plus 15,000, critical plus 1 until end of that battle. And at the end of that battle, you put all of this unit's original dress into the drop. So that's a very one and done, very powerful skill. Gives him 15k extra power and extra crit. Although it comes at a cost, because at the end of it, he loses all of his original dress. So not only will he not be in the overdress state anymore, so he won't be able to use that ability again, he also won't be able to gain any extra power from his continuous ability. So after you use that, he's just a vanilla grade 3, so you want to be selective about when you use that. However, one cool thing you can do with this card in the deck, since it overdresses on any unit in the overdress state, it doesn't specify a grade. So if you've got your Esperidia out on the field with a bunch of original dress stacked up underneath it, and you run out of soul to be able to pay its cost and you can't restand it anymore, what you can do is you can just overdress Expecta on top of your grade 4 Esperidia, and then Expecta will gain the massive amount of power from all of the original dress that's stacked up underneath it, potentially, possibly even being able to hit over 100k on its own. So that's a funny play you can do if you run out of resources for Esperidia. So next for our grade 3s, we are just running 1 copy of our normal order, Horns of Blessing. So you can play this card by discarding a card with the overdress ability from your hand, and it just lets you draw 2 cards. So if you're familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, this card is basically just Destiny Draw for overdress. It helps you set up one of your overdress units in the drop zone for Esperidia to suck it up with its ability, while letting you get some extra draw power. So it's a pretty cool card just to use at 1. So that's all for grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we do have our 1 copy of Vairina. So another overdress unit, you overdress it on top of a Trickstar. And then his auto ability, when this unit in the overdress state attacks a Vanguard, this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of that battle. Then you can Soul Blast 2 and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So this card is mainly there just to be searched off of FuRyu. I don't go into it real often, actually. I usually want to go into either Esper Iridia or Arcs more so than him. But if you do have to go into him, between his ability and Nirvana's ability, he's going to be swinging for a 30k base, so he can be a pretty good beat stick. I don't usually use the Soul Blast part of his skill because normally you need that soul to restand Esper Iridia more than you need to retire. But it's there if you really want to use it, I guess. So next, we're running 4 copies of Vairina Arcs. So again, another overdress unit, and again you overdress him on top of Trickstar. And his auto ability, when this unit is placed on rear guard circle, if it is overdress, you can counterblast 1, draw 2 cards, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this card's the main draw engine of your deck. He also gains power for that 1 turn. After the turn you overdress him, he is just a vanilla grade 2. So you can intercept him away to get him into your drop to be sucked up by Esper Iridia skill if you want to. Or you can overdress Expecta on top of him. So yeah, after that first turn you probably want to do one of those 2 things with him. So that's all of our grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 3 copies of Blaze Maiden Amelia. So she's got an activate ability that says if you have a Vanguard with Nirvana in its card name, and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1, put this unit into your soul, and choose up to 1 unit card with Nirvana in its card name from your hand, and ride it as stand. Then if you rode, you cannot ride by card effects until the end of turn. So the main point of this card is to be able to superior ride into Mahar Nirvana on turn 3 if you went second, being able to hit grade 4 1 turn earlier than you normally would. However, if you do go first, this card would normally be useless, though there is one kind of funny thing you can do with it. If you went first and you have 2 copies of Mahar in your hand along with at least 1 copy of Amelia, what you can do on turn 4, you could just normal ride into Mahar Nirvana and then use his burn skill to burn your opponent, which that ability is once per turn. But then you could call Amelia and use Amelia's skill to superior ride into another copy of Mahar Nirvana, which counts as a different unit, so you could use his burn skill again and actually potentially burn your opponent twice in 1 turn. So that's not the most practical play in the world. It does require you to go first, for you to have 3 specific cards in your hand, for you to have 3 face-up damage, and for your opponent to be at 3 or less damage. So it's not the best play in the world, although it is pretty funny if you can pull it off. So next for our grade 1s, we have 2 copies of Blaze Pole Monk Retsuji. So his auto ability, when this unit is placed on rear guard circle, you can counterblast 1 to choose up to 1 card with the overdress ability from your drop and put it into your hand. And if your Vanguard is grade 4, you countercharge 1. So he lets you recycle your Vairinas out of your drop zone back into your hand, which is very useful, especially if you're playing against retire decks and your Esper Iridias get taken out or something and you need to recycle one of them. Now his ability does end up paying for itself thanks to the countercharge, assuming you're at grade 4. However, it does require you to have the 1 open damage to pay the cost initially, so you do want to keep that in mind. So lastly for our grade 1s, we just have our Sentinels, so we're running 4 copies of Twin Buckler Dragon, which is just our basic perfect guard. Of course, we are not running Elementaria Sanctitude in this deck, since it only works if your Vanguard is grade 3 or lower. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s. First off, we have 4 copies of Trickstar. So his continuous ability, this unit cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects. So pretty good protection ability, although it doesn't come into play real often, considering most of the time you're going to immediately overdress something on top of him. Which that is the main purpose. He is in this deck at the maximum of 4 copies. You definitely need this card in order to pull off all of your overdress combos. So you definitely want to run him at max. So for the rest of our grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crits, 2 fronts, 2 draws, 4 heals, and 1 over. So starting with the crit triggers, we have 3 copies of Blaze Maiden Zone, which is just our vanilla crit. Additionally, we're running 4 copies of Burning Flail Dragon. So it's the crit with a skill. At the end of the battle it boosted, you can put it into your soul to give someone plus 2,000. If you use that skill at all, it's mainly there just to get another card into your soul, so you can pay Esper Iridia's cost if you're running short on soul resources. So it's good to have this one for that option. Next for our fronts, we have 2 copies of Blaze Maiden Parama. So it is the front with a skill, gains extra 5k shield if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater. So 20k shield, always useful. Next for the draws, we have 2 copies of Flare Veil Dragon. So it's the draw with a skill, again continuous ability if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, get shield plus 5,000. So 10k shield, draw trigger, definitely the one you want. Then lastly for our heals, we have 4 copies of Blaze Maiden Rona, which is just the vanilla heal. As always, if you want to run the effect ones, you can. And then our 1 over trigger is, of course, Dragon Deity King of Resurgence, Drag Veda. So his additional effect, choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. So extremely powerful effect, being able to restand your Vanguard. One thing to keep in mind, that Esper Iridia's restand skill does activate when your Vanguard attacks. However, it is once per turn, so even if you check this and restand your Vanguard, you won't be able to restand Esper Iridia a second time. So anyway, that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And we'll fight Donji, I guess. And we will be going second. Alright, so let's drop Expecta to ride Reno. Then we can use our starter skill to draw. And then we can just go ahead and attack. We get a front trigger that is wasted. And he gets a heal trigger that is also wasted. And we'll let that through. Alright, so let's drop... we'll drop that heal, I guess. To ride Ryu. And we can use Reno's skill to superior call our Trickstar from the deck. And then we can overdress into Vairina Arcs. And use his ability to counterblast. And draw 2. And I think that's all for right now, so we'll attack with our Vanguard first. And then we can attack with arcs. Which the AI in this game actually plays kind of like Donji did in the anime a little bit. So it actually won't call any rear guards at all until it's in Final Rush. So, yeah. The AI doesn't necessarily make the best moves in the world. So we're going to go ahead and let that through. Alright, so let's drop one of these Amelias to ride Nirvana. Then we can use Ryu's skill to Soul Blast. And search out Vairina from our deck. Which, let's see, we actually don't have another Trickstar at the moment. So I think what we're gonna do is we'll go ahead and call Amelia and then use her ability to counterblast and put her in her soul. And then we can superior ride into Mahar Nirvana. So we'll at least be at grade 4, and we'll get our power up to our front row since we've got a unit in the overdress state. And let's see, we will actually just normal call Esperaridia to our rear guard circle since we'll still be able to restand him, so that'll give us 4 attacks. So I think we are good, so we'll go ahead and attack with Esperaridia first. It gets a crit trigger. So then we can attack with Mahar Nirvana, which will trigger Esperaridia's skill to let us Soul Blast. And restand. Any perfect guards. We get a front trigger, nice. And there's the Trickstar we need. Alright, so now we can attack with arcs. And it lets it through. And then we can attack with Esperaridia again. And he lets it through too. And he gets a draw trigger. Alright, so we got him to 5. And he's in Final Rush, but he actually doesn't have his grade 4 in his hand. He is going to play his order though, so he's going to power up that Brainwash Swirler by 20k.
Vanguard へアタックだ。スキル発動。パワープラス。
Alright, let's see. We'll guard that with Parama. Because he is going to get 5 attacks in this turn.
Vanguard へアタックだ。スキル発動。 パワープラス
That soul charge will power up his brainwash swirler yet again.
パワープラス
Alright, so let's see. We'll guard this one as well with Parama. And we'll actually intercept with our arcs.
Vanguard へアタックだブルースのスキル発動
So now I can restand 2 of his rear guards. So we'll let this one through.
ドライブチェック
Oh, and he pulls his over trigger.
パワープラス
That's gonna give him an extra crit, so that'll be 2 damage.
一気に決着つけるぜ
ダメージチェック。よし、クリティカルトリガー。
We get a crit trigger.
クリティカルプラス。パワープラス。ダメージチェック。
ヴァンガードへアタックだスキル発動パワープラス
And let's see, we'll guard this one with Rona and Vairina.
ガードします。
ヴァンガードへアタックだ
And that's an insane number, so we're gonna let that one through, since it's just 1 crit.
ダメージチェック。
ターンエンド
スタンドアンドドロー。
Alright, so let's see. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is actually I'm going to call Trickstar over top of Esperidia. So that'll get him into our drop, and then we can call Retsuji, who will put... we'll put him over here. And then we can use Retsuji's skill to counterblast. And add Esperidia back to our hand. And then we can counter charge. So then we'll overdress into arcs once again. And use arc skill
スキル発動。
to counterblast and draw 2.
パワープラス。
So then we'll use Mahar Nirvana's ability to counterblast and soul blast, which will let us revive our Trickstar from the drop.
スペリオルコール。
And we don't get to burn him because he's already at 5 damage. But we can overdress into Vairina Esperidia
オーバードレス。
and use his skill,
ミラルイデアのスキル発動。
which will give him 4 original dress. And then, on top of that, we're going to go ahead and overdress Expecta on top of arcs as well. And I think we are good with that. So then we can attack with Esperidia first.
ヴァンガードにアタックします。
And he goes.
ガード
So then we can attack with Mahar Nirvana
します。
and use Esperidia's skill to Soul Blast
スキル発動。
and restand
パワープラス。
and gain 20k.
スキル発動
And he's got a perfect guard.
完全ガードするぜ
ドライブチェック。ドライブチェック。よし、クリティカルトリガー。
And we get a crit trigger. So we'll give both those effects to
プ
Esperidia.
ラス。パワープラス。ドライブチェック。よし。
And then we get another crit. Alright. So we'll give both those to Expecta.
プラス。
So then we'll attack with Esperaridia once again.
ガードにアタックします。
ノーガード
And he's got to let it through. And that's 2 crit, so
クリティカルトリガー
yeah, we got him. That crit is not gonna help him.
プラス
So we have won.
楽しいファイトでした。
So there you go. That was our grade 4 Mahar Nirvana deck. So I'll be back soon with more deck profiles. I believe the next one I have coming up is going to be Bastion. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.